What's up, my friends? Welcome back to the channel. In the last video, I was finally able to finish up the painting on the Evo 10 side skirt. The last two pieces that I needed to paint on this car were the side skirt and the wing back here. Unfortunately for the wing, I did run into some issues. For some reason, I had a really bad reaction with the base coat. I did get a few dirt and dust nibs in the clear coat on the side skirt, so I'm going to be sanding and polishing those out. And hopefully I can get the bodywork finished on the wing and get it painted. Stay tuned. If you didn't see the last video, definitely go check it out. As you can see here, the side skirt came out amazing. Base coat went on perfectly, clear coat went on perfectly. No issues at all aside from the dirt and dust nibs, which, as I always say, is to be expected when painting in a garage. This piece actually came out fairly good. There's only a few little spots in here, a few little nibs that need to be sanded down. Not sure how well you can see that on camera. There's one little one right in there. There's a couple more right here on the side. For anyone who saw the original bodywork videos, this thing had a bunch of rock chips all over. It was deep into the plastic. Same thing in the back here. There were a lot of rock chips. So something had slung up here. It dug all into the plastic. I was able to get all of that filled in back here. Body lines look great. Everything looks so good. This was one really big dent in the plastic. I didn't really know how to get that out. I tried heating it up and pushing it out from the back, but I'm not a professional painter, so I'm not exactly sure how to fill that in. I just figured that'd be a permanent battle scar there. Unfortunately, however, in the last video, I also tried to get the wing painted. You can see here where I sprayed the first layer of base coat over the primer. I hope you can see this well on camera, but this is the reaction that I'm getting. There's one spot that keeps happening, and then if you look under here lower, hopefully with that light you can see it a little bit better, but it's just kind of a wrinkling. I call it a spider webbing effect. But it's all along the edge right in here. Another place it happened at is right down here on the bottom of where the wing is at. Didn't get any spider webbing on this side. However, I did get a lot of runs, which is surprising. It doesn't usually happen to me in the base coat. Full story is that the morning of trying to paint both of these pieces, Jagger was actually out here in the garage with me. He bumped the stand, knocked the wing over, and it did some damage down here on the other side and then right here at the edge. It wasn't really bad. I thought that I could do a quick fix with it, so I just sanded it down the best that I could, got everything really smooth, and then when I laid down the base coat initially, it started having the reaction. Ended up sanding it all the way back down. I laid down some self-etching primer. It was not 2K filler primer. It was a 1K self-etching primer. Again, just trying to be quick with it. Sanded all of that down, feathered it out really nicely, and then when I laid down the base coat again, had the exact same reaction in basically the exact same places. After doing some research, it sounds like what the problem is that when you sand this stuff down too far, it goes into the original base layer. When you start to spray on that new layer of paint, the solvent that is there actually creeps in and gets underneath where that factory base layer is at, and that's what starts to cause that rippling effect, and that's why there's just an outline here instead of the whole thing being wrinkled. Same thing down here. All of these, if you actually look closely on the edges, it's actually an outline. It's not the whole thing being crinkled up. One other thing that I think contributed to all of this is the fact that I had to switch up paints. This is the original paint that I have always used. It mixes 1-to-1. Paint store was closed for a couple of days and I did not want to wait, so I ended up going up to O'Reilly's. I picked up some of this Nason XL. I assumed that it mixed 1-to-1. Come to find out, it mixes 2-to-1, so I had a lot of extra reducer in there when I was spraying it. The more reducer you have, obviously, the more prone you are to this happening. I think that's also why I was getting these runs over here, because I had all of that extra reducer in there. These are just lessons learned. I can sand all of this back down. We'll get some 2K primer on here, make sure everything is blocked out. Before I do anything else with the wing back here, though, I want to go ahead and finish off the side skirt completely. That way, this is the only piece that I have to focus on. I'm going to get all of the dirt and dust nibs sanded down. I'll get all of them polished out, and then we'll get this thing reinstalled on the car, and then once I'm done with that, we can start working on the wing. Side skirt is back on the Evo. Everything came out looking absolutely amazing. I know for some that are watching this is just like, okay, you painted a couple of doors and a side skirt, but this is months and months of work for me. It was a major learning process. Definitely ran into a lot of issues along the way, but just incredibly happy to have this done. I'm just so happy with how it looks. No more damage on the doors. All of those rock chips that were down there are completely gone. It makes this quarter panel back here look really, really bad actually, because there is still some damage on it. Maybe one day I'll tackle that, but for now I am definitely going to call it quits on the painting. As far as the sanding and polishing goes, I'll explain everything and how I do it. Again, this is one of those things I just kind of had to learn as I went along. I feel like my process works pretty well right now, but this is what I start with. It's this P1500. You get an entire roll of it off of Amazon. It's the Duragold brand. It's not your normal sandpaper. I don't know really what they call it, but it's the same stuff that comes with the Tolcut system, which is also what I use. If you order one of these Tolcut systems, it comes with all of these different sandpapers, and it comes with these little pads, and it's got the same type of paper on there. What I do is just cut the roll into little quarters, and I can use it on my blocks. This is what I use to initially knock the dirt and dust nibs down with. After I knock the dirt and dust nibs down initially, then I move on to the 2000. This is just regular sandpaper. One thing to keep in mind is keep it localized. Don't try to spread it out. Try to keep it as much in the area that you're trying to sand down as possible, and then just barely go around the edges. From there, I move over to this foam finishing pad. I get these at Harbor Freight. I do go ahead and do the 2000, even though the other one is 2000 also. I believe that this is just a little bit finer scratch than an actual 2000 grit paper. After that, I move on to the 3000 grit. I do everything by hand. If it was a larger piece like the door and I was using the DA or something like that, obviously I would put it on there. But for the side skirt, because it was small, I just did everything by hand. After the 3000 grit, I move on to the compound. So this is what I use. I get this at Harbor Freight also. It works really, really good. I use the Harbor Freight Bauer pads if I'm using the big DA, but for my drill, these are the pads that I use. I get them off of Amazon. It's this Menzerna brand. What I really like about them is the diameter of the pad actually goes beyond where the Velcro is at. So you can get into those nooks and crannies really easy. These right here, I know it looks yellow, but it's supposed to be the green pad. It's for the soft cut. And then the yellow pad here is the medium cut. So I use the medium pad with the compound, and then I use the little green pad here with my polish. This one's almost empty, that's why I've got it upside down. The rest of the car is already ceramic coated in the Avalon King Armor Shield 9. This is their 2-year coating. I'm actually a big fan of this stuff. I ceramic coated the car before I started this painting project, and the car was sitting for almost 9 months with no wash. Just threw some soap and water on there, and this thing was completely clean. After I got the side skirt back on the car, I did go ahead and ceramic coat it. When installing this thing, I did forget that there is a little bit of tape that runs along there. I was able to scrape away most of the old stuff, and then this is what I used. It's this exterior attachment tape. The cool thing is it's actually a 1/4 inch, so it's the perfect size for the side skirt. No issues with installation at all though. Very, very easy piece to put on. Sadly, there still is one more piece on the car that needs to be finished up, and that's the wing over here. I'm just going to get this thing pulled out. Not sure where I'm going to start at just yet, but I'm just going to get sanding on it. Once I get everything sanded down how I like, I'll lay some primer down and get it blocked out. I got the primer laid down. I got everything blocked out. However, there is one issue right over here on this side. The whole point of me putting this primer on here was to cover up the spots that I burned through, and then I ended up burning through again here, and then one more spot right down there at the bottom. Center section came out okay. Everything looks good. Everything underneath looks okay. This side over here actually came out okay. I got everything feathered in nicely. This really sucks. This was supposed to be the end of this, and then I was going to be able to paint this thing, but it looks like I'm going to have to lay on just a little bit more primer to cover up these areas here. I've been doing a lot of research on the best way to actually go about this, and so what I'm going to do is just mix up a very, very thin sealer. I'm going to try to put just 1 or 2 coats. I'm not going to spray it as thick as I did before, just to get those areas covered up, and then what I'll do is try to sand the overspray around the edges. Probably not going to be painting it in this video. I'm going to save that for the next one. I am going to go ahead and get that sealer on here. I'll get it sanded down, and then after that this thing should be ready to go for paint. Sealer is on, wing is all ready to go for paint. Let me just start off by saying that the first layer of primer that I put on there was basically completely unnecessary. The way that I sprayed it on there, as heavy as I did, that's not what I was after at all. There were just a few spots that I needed to hit. Sometimes things are just a learning process as you go, but this worked out absolutely amazing. For this primer, it's a high build primer. If you mix it the way that it says at 4:1 right there, it's a high build primer. That's 4:1, 4 parts primer, and then 1 part hardener or activator. But you can actually add another 1 part reducer, and that will make this thing basically a primer surfacer. But if you'll mix it 4:1 to 2 parts reducer, it'll actually make this into a sealer. Obviously all you're doing is just thinning it out, but by doing that it lays on very, very smooth. It's not rough at all. I feel like I could lay base coat straight over this and you would not see any texture. The other major thing that I did is I changed up my gun settings. I've always run with the fluid control nozzle all the way open. Because I knew that I was hitting these little tiny spots, I basically turned this thing all the way in, and from all the way in I just pulled it out maybe a turn or 2. You can really tell a difference because the trigger does not pull in very far at all, but it limits the amount of fluid that comes through that tip. Turned my fan pattern all the way down so it was basically just a dot. Got right up on the areas and just barely hit them. You can see over here where I hit the other areas. One spot on the front there, and then over here on this side as well is all finished up. I laid on just 2 to 3 coats, and when I say coats, I mean I just went over and just spritzed it 3 different times in those areas. Looking back on it after doing everything, I kind of wish I would have just laid that sealer over every bit of primer. You can see here these edges I didn't actually put any on. I was just trying to cover up those areas that I burned through. This wing should finally be ready to go for paint again. I'm not going to be painting it in this video like I said, so that'll be what's in the next one. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, if you liked it, if you learned something, please hit that like button. If you want to see this thing finally get painted, go back on the Evo, hit that subscribe button, and I will catch you guys next time.